Welcome back, everyone, and to our final session of day 3. And I'm excited to introduce Tim Robson, Managing Director of NSU Media, an employee communications and engagement agency working with some of the UK's biggest brands. An inspirational thinker and speaker, he brings a fresh approach to performance and the professional mindset, and is the author of Showing Up: How to Make a Greater Impact at Work. Over 3 billion people across the planet went to work today, but which version of them showed up? Many different versions of us show up in the workplaces every single day, and for a variety of reasons. Hear how to truly show up in the work you do, to manage the environments in which you're working, and to bring, more consistently, the version of yourself you always promise. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Robson.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Chris, for that introduction. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to spend a bit of time chatting to you today and as part of this event. As Chris said, my name's Tim Robson. I'm the MD of NSU Media. We're a comms and engagement agency, and we work with these sorts of organisations. We operate like a marketing team, but for internal employees. And the reason why that's important is that, in our experience, often organisations put an awful lot of emphasis on the external customer and doing amazing communication to them. And sometimes employees in a company kind of get a raw deal and they get an email cascade or something like that. And so we're really interested in what would it look like if you made internal employees of an organisation feel important, valued, treasured. If you felt like that, you'd communicate with them differently. And so whether it's a utility or a bank or the NHS or a Premiership football club, internal employees matter, because the version of them that shows up impacts everything else. I wrote this book, Showing Up, in 2014, and it's fundamentally about how do you get back to the version of yourself that you sold at interview. If you think about how an interview goes, if you've ever done a competency-based interview, people ask you questions like, tell me about a time when. Tell me about a time when you delivered something amazing. Tell me when you really brought a team together. Tell me when you took an issue or a problem and you formulated a plan and you fixed that challenge. And of course, in an interview, what do? We take all of our stories from our lives and we pour them into that answer. All of our experiences. The very point of a competency-based question is to go, let's dig under the surface. Who is this person? And that's what we bring. We bring us, our experiences, our challenges, our setbacks. And all of us have them. Very few of us have a career or a life that goes like that. Most of us, it's like this. And at the points, the kind of tips either way, there's learning. And when it comes to an interview, we go, this is me. And that's what an organisation buys. Any one of you that's in a job brought yourself, whether it's been a promotion or whether it was an external hire, you sold in a version of yourself and said, this is the promise. If you employ me, this is what you will get. And it was true. The only question is, are you bringing that today? Did you bring that last week? Is the version of you that's doing your job right now, or if I'd recorded you for the last 6 weeks and we showed it back to your friends and family, would they recognise you? Is it you? Is it the one that you promised? And of course, there's all sorts of factors that impact the version of us that shows up at work. The market conditions, internal or external, the people we work with, how we're feeling in the moment, what's going on in the rest of our lives. And of course, what I'm interested in is how do you narrow the gap between the promise and what we do consistently? The reason that's important is because of one number. If you work a 5-day week, which most of us do, that means that your 40-year career is just 10,000 days. Now, 10,000 might seem like a big number until you think about how many days you've done and how many days you've got left. Now, I understand that many of us will work more than a 40-year career, but you know what? I don't meet many people who want to. Lots of people say, oh, I want to tap out of this by the time I'm X age, or I'm doing this to lay the foundation for what I really want to do. The world seems to be kind of full of people waiting to do the thing they really want to do and doing the thing that they're doing right now in order to save so much money so that actually they can do the thing they really want to do that they don't have enough money to do right now because they're doing this thing to save what they want to do. 10,000 days goes really quickly. I had a client once who was sat in a wine bar in London. I was sharing him about 10,000 days, and he was in the banking industry, and he was a high performer, loved his career, loved what he was doing, loved the organisation. And he said, "See, the thing is, Tim, I don't really want to be doing this at all." I said, "Oh, what do you want to be doing?" He said, "I really want to build boats." I said, "Tell me about building boats." And he had a really clear plan about what the boats were, where he wanted to do it, how it was happening, how it would happen, the skills he would need. And it tracked right the way back to his childhood and family holidays that have been really meaningful. And I said to him, "So how long do you want to be doing that for?" And he said, "I want to do that for the last 10 years of my career." So we sat in this wine bar in London doing the numbers on a napkin. And here's a guy who's enjoying his career, who's a high performer, and we worked out that night that he had 1,300 days left to do everything that he wanted to do to lay the foundation so he could build boats and also do everything that he'd look back on in future that said that was the career I had. 10,000 days seems like a lot, but it's about 165 days, working days, when you see this since lockdown started. Those days go fast. And actually, time seems to move quickly. We were working with a client making a film last Monday, and by Thursday it felt like the world had changed again because we couldn't go out onto the site because of local lockdowns. The days move fast. And so I'm all about the 10,000 days or the 2,000 days or the 100 days or the 5 days. What can you do today that makes a difference? What version of you arrived, and is it working for you? And one of the things, of course, that happens in the work that we do is that things are constantly changing. If you think about the workplace, you can't control the change, you can control your reaction. And I think it's a lot like the way that we interact on our mobile phones with the apps that are on there. And I talk about this in the book. There was a time when if you bought a product or a service, it was the final version, it was done. It had gone through all the tests that it needed to go through, and it was the perfect version. And we used to get very bent out of shape if there were any glitches in it, and we used to complain. That's kind of all changed these days. The idea of a development team that's a customer base when an app is launched is actually completely okay. People put apps out and say, "Here's a new idea, tell us what you think." But every app on our phone is kind of sold to us with the promise of an update. This is the version today, but it's going to change. This is what you get right now, but more is coming. iOS 14 was released last week when I'm recording this. And actually, it's got all sorts of different features and benefits. It will be in there as a response to what customers have said. There'll be new things you can do. It will look different. Some of it will work for us, some of it won't. And you know what? It's iOS 14, and we know 15 is coming. I've already updated 14.1. What's interesting about the work that we do is that we change lots of things in our lives. We change the colours of the walls in our house. We change our hairstyle, some of us. We change the clothes that we wear. We change where we go on holiday. We change the cars that we drive. When it comes to the work that we do, quite often we kind of grip it. We go, let me learn how to do my job, and then I've got it, nailed it. An update, or the idea of updates, suggests that the way you're doing your job right now won't be sufficient for September 21. There will be a new thing that's required. Things will change that will require you to adapt. The idea that you as an individual in the workplace learns your job and goes, "This is it, I've got it," is a bit like this, an old version of Word. It would probably work. You could probably write a document. You might even be able to print it. You probably can't email it anywhere. You can't save it in the cloud. It's still a document, but it just feels clunky and out of date. And I don't know what you would be feeling today, but are there ways in which something worked 2 years ago and now it doesn't work? This seemed to be my kind of MO. and now I don't get the results that I got. It's an update. It's an indication, it's data to you and I that actually something needs to change. And it doesn't mean that the old wasn't good, it just means it can be better. When you update an app, when iOS 14 is updated, it takes all of the bits that work and then it adds on new bits. It gets rid of the bugs. It gets rid of the bits that just got in the way. Are there ways that you work, that I work, that just consistently irritate people? Or where we don't get the results that we want, or it just feels a little bit clunky, like the gears are kind of crunching. The opportunity is to go, how do I go from this to something new? Now, you don't need me to tell you that this year has been like one enormous update. We've got clients that are saying that they moved on culturally 4 years in 4 weeks. Got clients that say they don't ever want to go back. One of our clients is a retailer that launched the Deliveroo service in 2.5 weeks, and it would have taken just the project team 2.5 years to get to that point. It was possible because it happened. And of course, the ways that we work are significantly changing. And there is a kind of looking back moment. You've seen the logo at the front. We're doing quite a lot of work in the NHS, and interesting talking to some of the board teams there and some of the operational teams and nursing managers and so on. You don't need me to tell you that the NHS is hurting. This year has been like no other, and it wasn't easy anyway. But what they describe is almost like a grieving of the old days. If you're a clinical leader, you've been trained to work a certain way. This is how healthcare works. And it's all about your competency. And then suddenly we're going to move you to a different discipline because something's happened that we weren't expecting. And people kind of going, oh, that worked for me. Don't tell me to do something else. You ever been in a situation where you feel like, I've just got it. I just worked it out. I just boxed it off. And now you've changed everything. That's what this year has been about. And some of us are finding it easier to adjust to than others. New ways of working, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. But you know what? It's an update. It was always going to change, and it will change again. And of course, in an interview, we would have said we were flexible. We wouldn't have said, well, I tell you what I do. I tend to just work really hard to nail the job, and I get it absolutely organised, and then I just grip it, and I don't look for any other changes. Can I have the job, please? We wouldn't have sold that. What we sell is this kind of flexibility, and of course, we do that in other areas of our lives. All of us have been forced to do something different. I'm interested in what does that mean for the work that we do? Because these changes are real. I think there are 4 kind of key elements to the way that people behave that kind of brings us at our most, that gets back to that version that we sold at interview, and it's mindset, outcomes, strengths, and time. Where's your head? What's your plan? Where are you using and applying your strengths and the things you're very best at? And all of that is manifested in what you spend your time on. I reckon you could get a pretty good read on my performance, or I could on your performance, by just looking at what you spend your time on. Where does your time go? And of course, time has changed for all of us as well. The way that we manage time and all sorts of things have been possible in terms of the workplace and remote working and socially distanced workplaces and all of that. Again, it's a big update, but it does represent performance. A number of people I know who have now moved to back-to-back meetings all day on Zoom. Please don't tell me that is the best way to work. Please don't tell me that 9 solid hours of listening when you're probably only checked in for an hour and a half is helpful. Mindset, outcome, strengths, and time. Let me just talk about mindset for a second, because I think it's important. I don't know about you, but I came to skiing late in life. I'd always wanted to ski, but I'd never kind of got round to it. And I learned to ski late, but I loved it, and it's reframed and changed the way that I approach and enjoy holidays. But when I learned to ski, I fell into the same way of learning as I did when I learned to drive. When I learned to drive, I hated learning to drive, and I had a thing called central periphery tension. I'd never heard of it before either. Now, central periphery tension means this, that essentially, from sheer panic and fear, I would sit with my hands on the steering wheel, gripping, staring at the end of the bonnet. Now, that is a high-risk strategy for driving. It's even higher risk if you're turning left or right from a T-junction looking to get out and staring at the bonnet. Of course, when we drive, the thing we don't look at is the end of the bonnet until we stop, and the faster we go, we're looking further ahead in the distance and using our mirrors and our peripheral vision, or at least we should be. Now, when I learned to ski, I did exactly the same thing. Put my boots on, strapped into the skis, and just stared at the end of my skis. That is also a high-risk strategy for skiing, any of you that do that. And of course, you can't do anything that way. And the instructor, who was a really cool French fella, put his hand on my arm at one point and said, "Tim, look up." Of course, you look up and I see this amazing vista, this view that I had just ignored and everything I'd kind of worked for to go on this amazing holiday, and I've missed it all for the previous 40 minutes because I'm locked. And then he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "Where your attention is where you'll go." Where your attention is where you'll go. When you ski, what happens is you traverse the mountain and you look down far into the distance for where you intend to go. And the faster you're going, you're looking ahead, looking at the snow conditions, looking at the slope, looking at if there's an incline coming, so you need to increase your speed to be able to get up there. You're looking far in the distance. And if you've ever skied or snowboarded, you'll see in the height of the season, a busy piste will be littered on both sides with people looking back to where they've come from and looking down to where they're going next. You can't get down a mountain by looking at the end of your skis. And attention in skiing sets direction. Attention in driving sets direction. And attention in our lives does the same. If you're a positive person, the chances are it's not going to diminish. If you're a negative person, the chances are it won't just flip. What we give attention to grows. It becomes a filter. It becomes what we look for. You ever met someone who just constantly seems to be able to draw the worst possible scenario out of something great? Or the person who goes, "It's another day." Now, both of them have set a filter. Both of them are setting direction. And this isn't about just pop psychology. It's not just thinking yourself positive. Most of us, most of you watching this, where you are in your lives, where you live, your domestic situation, the part of the country you work and live in, the job that you do, the people you surround yourself with, I'd like to suggest that a lot of that is as a result of what you've given attention to. Now, I know some things just happen from left field, but quite often we set direction, we go after things. And in the workplace, what you give attention to will grow. Where your attention is where you'll go. The other thing that we say as an agency quite a lot to clients is, what doesn't bend breaks. And that's not about losing yourself or your sense of direction. It's about going, here is who I am. Here's my preference. Here's how I work. Here are all the stories I've got that got me this job in the first place that can generate a potential level of performance. And you know what? It might not work out as I planned today. And I need to just bend. I need to flex. I need to surf the wave. Whatever metaphor works for you. Think about a wave. Good luck standing against it and saying it's not my plan. I'm not ready. What we have to do is go, these are the conditions that I'm in. How do I then adjust? We have found ways of doing it this year. And I tell you what, I guarantee everything is going to change again. I'm noticing, and I notice it in my friends, in my family, I notice it in me, that as lockdown kind of lifts, there's like we'll go back. A client in the NHS said, there is no pre-COVID world to go back to. Those days are over. And she didn't say it with any hint of negativity. There was no pining. There was just, those days have gone. We will remember them, but this is now different. And that's kind of true. It's not about recovering the old. It's about saying, this is an update. And so, as I draw to a close, I'm interested in you asking yourself a question. At the end of this period of 3 days, of thinking and reflecting about what does it mean to be us in the workplace? What does it mean to look out for everyone? What does it mean to be doing this thing called work that's really peculiar, but that we spend loads of time doing it? It's not just a job. It's where we spend 250 plus working days every year. The challenges have come this year. If you had told yourself, or if I'd said to you, you know what, I've got a pretty sneaking suspicion that in the next 250 days this is going to happen, you would have carted me off. But of course, it happened. I don't know what the next 250 will bring. I don't know what it will feel like, but I do know it'll be different. It won't be what we planned for. And you know what? Somewhere sneaking in the back of our minds, I think that's what we sold at interview. We said, we're flexible. Us at our best rolls with the punches. Us at our best actually has found a way to navigate this changing world. And so when you think about the 250 that are to come, the question I would ask is, update now? Thank you.